What is going on, everyone? And welcome to another episode of the Marz Pod. We're going to be talking Bucks today. I got Brandon with me again. It's been a little bit since we talked. Haven't done a podcast last thing we did, I think, was around March Madness time. But we're back and got some Bucks news to catch up on. Starting with news that just broke tonight. The Bucks sign Mamadi Diakite to a 2-year deal. I think it's like the end of this year counts as like the first year, so then they lock him up through next year.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think of this? Because there's been obviously people earlier in the year and kind of throughout the year have been talking about him as he could be like Christian Wood type of guy where you hold on to him, see what you've got, and you don't want to just let him go too soon and then he turns out to be something really good with another team. So it looks like they're kind of learning from their past mistake with Wood, where they, at that time they I think signed Pau Gasol to end like at the end of that season, who never played, didn't do anything, and then lost Christian Wood, who ended up leaving, becoming, now a really good player for the Rockets. But now it looks like with Diakite, they're gonna keep him, see what they've got in him. How do you feel about that? And just moving forward with Diakite, how do you feel about him?
Yeah, I like Diakite. I like his offensive potential and what he brings on defense. So I like the signing, and I like people say, you're not going to know what a guy's got unless you give him minutes, get him in the rotation. With a team like the Bucks, with them being a potential finals contender, it's tough with some guys, but when you need extra anchors, extra guys in the rotation to be ready, these are the type of guys you need to try out. So I like it.
Yeah, and I was like in the beginning of the year when people were talking about playing Diakite more, had kind of been all on the mindset of play him in the regular season, at least a little bit, give him some minutes, which they have a little bit. They've been playing him, especially those games where like Giannis and Chris and Drew were out, he'd play a lot. But I've been like, okay, give him minutes, see what you got, because you can risk losing regular season games. See what you have in him, and then if he's playing really well, give him some playoff minutes. But I don't think I'm gonna play him much in the playoffs. Like I'm not playing him in the playoffs personally, unless you're really just looking for some type of spark, something different to bring. But I want guys in the playoffs that I really trust, and so like guys like Diakite, guys like Thanasis, I just wouldn't play much because they just don't have any experience, and I can't trust them. So like I said, I want to give him some minutes in the regular season. I want to see what we have in him, and I hope they do that, and especially again next year too. Like give him some minutes, see what you have in this guy, because he could be really good. But in the playoffs, I'm holding back, and maybe next year he could play some in the playoffs. But I'm not really playing it much this year. I don't know if you agree with that.
I pretty much do. I think there are certain circumstances where they should, play these guys, and I guess it's more for the energy type aspect. Like, Thanasis is that guy that you might not really be able to trust, like you said, but he can flip the energy of a game around. I also think that though they can feed off them from their energy on the bench and whatever else they bring to the team. So either way, it's good to get them minutes and have them ready in case you do need them or do decide to play them in the playoffs, so they're not just finally getting minutes, once the playoff rolls around.
Yeah, and like you said, with Thanasis, like it's an energy thing. If they, like, I'm not saying absolutely never play Thanasis, but like if you're in a situation where you need some type of spark and the team's just playing lazy or something, put him in there. Like get the guys going and get some type of energy. Like I'm totally okay with that. But like I said, I'm not going into the playoffs like expecting them to have any type of significant role or anything. But we'll get to playoff rotation stuff later. Let's catch up on how the Bucks have been doing. Currently 35-22, third place in the East, and they're 4 games out of first, and I think 3 games behind the second. It might be more now because I think the Nets just won tonight, unfortunately. So I think they might be now 3.5 out of second. But what do you think? Do you think the Bucks end up in third? Like right now, it looks like it's pretty likely. Do you think they end up in third? Do you think they are able to move up at all? Are they going to try to, win games at the end of the year and make some type of push? They still have 2 games against the Sixers coming up this week, and they have 2 games against the Nets where you could make up some ground. But I don't know if they're actually going to. They've kind of all year been talking about how we're more geared towards the playoffs and we don't want to go all in for this regular season. We're playing we're playing for the long run. So they might. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they just don't even care at all about the 3 seed, 2 seed, 1 seed. They are just focused on getting guys healthy and just playing their best basketball later. How do you think it ends? The year ends for them?
Well, it's not wanting to go for the 1 seed because it's not that I'm worried about getting the 1 seed. It's the fact that if you're the 2 or the 3, you're going to have to play, whoever else is there to even get to the Eastern Conference Finals. So now you've got to beat, 2 of the top tier Eastern Conference teams, other than yourself. So you'd have to probably, let's say Philly finishes 1 and us in Brooklyn 2 and 3. You got to beat Brooklyn and then you got to beat Philly.
Yeah.
Whereas if you get the 1 seed, you're playing a probably pretty scrubby 8 seed.
Then you're playing a 4.
A mediocre 4, like, you look at other than us top 3, falls off to like a 500 team. Like you should easily take care of business. Maybe goes to 5-6 games, but no more than that. And then you have to, beat essentially one tough team to get to the finals. So I understand, they're like, oh, we're not playing for the regular season, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's fine. But it's not playing for, oh, we have the best record. It's playing for,
matchups,
home court advantage. And yes, the matchups. Like, so that's the part that irritates me. I definitely think we can do it. Some huge games coming up against Philly. Maybe they wanted to get those games out of the way when they benched all the guys. I was kind of irritated by that, but maybe they said, you know what, let's do it now and make our final push because obviously, like, it doesn't take a genius to know, the matchups are going to be a lot more difficult if you're not the 1 seed.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, that's why I've still been like I want to make up ground. I want to do whatever we can to potentially get to the top, I don't think we get the 1 seed, but potentially move up. Because, last night was very frustrating because the Sixers lost and it looked like, okay, we can gain something here. Again, with 2 games against the Sixers coming up later this week, like we have a chance, a little window. And like last night happened and whatever. Great game, but very frustrating. But I totally agree. If you're the 1, the 4 seed I think is the Hawks right now, and the 5 is the Celtics. So it's like you're basically going through the 8 seed, then either the Hawks or the Celtics to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm very confident in any situation. Like it looks like the 1 seed's not a lot by any means, but very, very likely to be in the Eastern Conference Finals at least. And as a 3 seed, you're going to have to play whoever the 6 is, which could be Miami, it could be Boston, it could be any of those teams because it's very, very jam packed down there at the end of the standings. Mm-hmm. But you're gonna have to play that in first round, and you have to play the Nets second round, and then probably the Sixers. So you're gonna have to go through some good teams right away. But yeah, it's one of those things where like I trust their kind of process throughout it. I'm not gonna knock them for how they want to approach it, but as you said, it's not like I don't want them thinking that, oh, we should not get the 1st seed just because we're not focused on winning in the regular season. It's like, yeah, like you said, it is part of the long-term thing is getting that 1 seed. It's not like when I said I was very confident going into the playoffs the last couple of years. Yes, we were the 1 seed, but it wasn't just because, oh, we have the best record. It was like you put yourself in the best situation to be successful in the playoffs. And so it's like, it's not just about saying you have the best record. It's about, okay, well, we also now are in a very good situation to potentially get to the finals. But I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I would definitely, I'm going to assume they stay in 3rd. And even, because then even if getting 2nd doesn't really change much, you just would have home court. You just would have home court over the Nets in that series, which I don't know how much of an impact that has, especially without full capacity with fans. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, like I said, 2 against Philly coming up Thursday and Saturday. So
and then we got
big games. Yeah. Big games if we want to have any type of shot, and then we have 2 against Brooklyn later. Yeah. But as far as how guys have been playing lately, Chris been on and off. Drew's been really good lately. It took him a little bit to get going at the beginning of the year, but his last 15 games, 21.3 points, 6.6 assists, 54% from the field, 49% from 3, and 89% from the line. Like the dude's almost at 50, 50, 90, which is insane. And 21-7 pretty much over the last 15 games. Like he's playing like the number 2 on this team. Not that it really matters, but he's been the guy that really has stepped up and played good defense yesterday as Chris Paul. And Chris Paul has had a really good game, but Drew was giving him a tough time, gave Booker a tough time against Trae Young a couple games ago. Trae Young shot 0 of 8 against him. Drew changed that game because a lot of other players on the Hawks played well. A lot of stuff went their way, but they still lost by double digits because Trae Young shot like 2 for 16 and couldn't do anything against Drew. And so Drew, like, this is the dude. Like, he is the difference maker to me in the playoffs. The guy that's going to, he gives me so much more confidence just in general. Like, going in the playoffs, I'm just like, okay, our floor, I feel like, is so much higher with Drew Holiday compared to Bledsoe, because I've said it multiple times, Bledsoe lost you playoff games that you could have won. Drew's going to win you games that you could lose.
Yep.
Because it's like, it's just the difference between like wins and losses with Bledsoe versus Drew. And so I think even if we do, whatever series we lose, I don't think we go out the same way where we're almost getting swept or anything like that. I think having Drew just gives us that safe, like, we're going to be in this thing. We're going to be very, very competitive. And then you just put yourself in a position where, hey, if our best players play our best, we can beat anyone. If they don't, we might come up short. But our floor is just a lot safer to me with Drew Holiday. How have we been feeling about Drew, and how do you feel going into playoffs with him?
I mean, their offense has just been clicking on like another level lately. It feels like, even if you are losing games here and there, like, especially compared to the start of the season, like you said, it's been almost night and day, just the way they move the ball, their spacing, and obviously the impact he has on defense, where you can throw him on, damn near anybody 1 through 4, and have him be able to lock him up. So it's like, the Middleton's been really good. As we know he has, you and I, we've talked about this countless times on here, that Middleton's, the guy next to Giannis. So it's refreshing to see a guy that can go create his own shot consistently, hit shots consistently. There's been so many shots where Holiday looks like he's going to try to drive to the hoop, hits a little pull-up three, and I'm just like, I don't think Bledsoe's hitting that consistently. And he's such a good finisher. He's so good.
Oh, it's amazing. He's always in control. Like, Bledsoe just would get out of control at times. He makes some dumb decisions. He takes some stupid shots. And there's just times where, like, this dude's killing us. Now, Drew does have some bad games, but you're still like, okay, like, he's making smart decisions for the most part. He's playing amazing defense. He's still just in control out there. And that's the thing that you didn't get with Bledsoe, where, again, Bledsoe would kill you sometimes. He was way more destructive than Drew Holiday is. And I said all offseason before we got him, I was like, I said, like, Chris can be your second guy, but you need a better third guy. And we got a much better third guy, another ball handler, another guy that can create his own shot when, if Giannis in the playoffs is getting shut down a little bit. And you're not just relying on Chris to be the only guy who can really create his own shot. And now, too, off the bench, you got a guy like Bobby Portis who can create his own shot, which we didn't really have last year. It was just a lot of, like, guys that could sometimes shoot threes but couldn't do much besides that. Now you have a few guys that can actually go get a bucket, which is huge come playoff time. And I don't think we talked about it all, the Drew Holiday extension, but obviously some great news there that we got a couple little – it was around Easter, I think. So, and we have now Giannis, Chris, and Drew locked up as a big three moving forward. So I'm just super excited for that, because I do think this big three is good enough with everything. Things have to go right, but I think this team is good enough with that big three to win a title and kind of get over the hump. And they're just such likable guys. Like, all three of them are so humble, and everything about them is just so likable that I just love having those guys as our big three. But
yeah, and anybody that was upset about that the trade that they made, to get Holiday, there's not much you can say now, considering you got Giannis locked up, Holiday locked up. Those first round picks mean nothing. Half the time, picks in that range aren't going to pan out. I mean, we've got our core guys, like you said, and talking kind of about some of the other guys. Bryn Forbes has been amazing all year. Connington, has really stepped up. He was struggling a little bit. I think he's finding his groove again. And some of these guys, like Connington, just when he's in the game with a Holiday, Middleton, Giannis, because they're so good and they make people better. Connington's better. He hits these shots where when he was playing with these reserves, it wasn't hitting him as much, because it's that offensive flow. Giannis knows where Pat's going to be. Pat knows when Giannis is going to drive, that type of thing. So that's huge. Forbes has been huge, and I think Portis is going to be really big for us come playoffs. Thoughts on PJ Tucker? Somebody said, another guy that he's not going to be that guy that he's not the guy that puts you over the top, but he's that guy that can and will help you win games if he does his job, which is play hard-nosed defense and hit threes. We saw him hit that big corner three last night. He might only get 2, 3, 4 shots a game, but if he hits couple of them in big moments, that's what you need from him, and that's the perfect guy.
He's not there to run offense. You're not going to look at the box score and be like, oh my God, PJ Tucker, what a game from him. No, you're going to watch the game and say, this guy helped us on defense. Maybe hit a couple clutch shots or did some corner threes down the stretch, like you said. But he's not going to be a guy that lights up the box score, and that's not what you brought him in to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get to playoffs, rotations, and stuff in a second. We talked about Drew a little bit. Now let's move on to the other member of the big three, not Giannis, but Chris. By the way, real quick, Giannis, I didn't mention this, but he was out for a little bit and now is back. He missed those 6 games at the start of April. And the Bucks went 3-3 during that stretch, struggled a little bit, and he's now back playing. He played 25 minutes, I think, against. Was it Atlanta that he came back against?
Yeah.
Yeah, he played 25 minutes, didn't play much, and then they played him yesterday. He got cramps at the end of the game. He looked good yesterday, but he got cramps into the game. Then they kept him out for the end. But good to see him kind of getting worked back into the mix. But so now Chris, his last 10 games, 19 points, which is fine, 6 assists, which is fine. But the efficiency has dipped 42% from the field, not nearly as good as he usually is, which is up around 50 usually. 38% from 3, still not bad. He's always, he's been a really good 3-point shooter overall, but still not as good as he normally is. Had that 6 of 27 game against Dallas a couple weeks ago, and he's been inconsistent a little bit. He'll have games where he shoots 4 of 15, and then he'll have a game where he shoots, 11 of 16 or whatever he shot a couple games ago. And so for Chris, I mean, I don't know the Chris debate on Twitter and all that. It's been going on for so long. I know people are tired of hearing it, but it's something that it gets brought up time and time again because you're time and time again reminded of both sides. Like you have moments where you're like, this dude's the number 2 and this dude's great and he's gonna win it. He's gonna be the second guy on a championship team. And then you'll have games where you're like, he can't be the guy. And it just constantly brings about this debate. And there's so many people on both ends. And where are you right now with Chris Middleton? Like, what is your confidence going into the playoffs? What is your confidence just in general? How have you been feeling about his play? All this stuff. Just talking about Chris Middleton.
My confidence with Chris always has been and always will be 100%. I mean, we see him last night. I don't know what he had, maybe 6 points at halftime, something like that.
I think it was 6.
Finished with like 25, 26. Obviously, they went in overtime. Has hit clutch shot after clutch shot. Like, the inbound play, 3 seconds in, top of the key, hits a 3. I mean, like, this guy just continues to not get credit, and it's just the fact that Bucks fans, the second the guy starts struggling, they're all on his ass. Like, I mean, the best of the best struggle, other than for guys like not everybody can go out there like Curry and consistently shoot 50% from 3. That's why Curry is the best shooter of all time. Chris Middleton's not that, but Middleton is the guy that if he hits a shot or 2, he's gonna get going. He's getting cooking, whatever. He's been so good distributing the ball too. I'm sure I don't know if it for sure is, but I think he's averaging career high in assists. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, he was. I don't know if he still is, but it's definitely right up there.
Yeah, so I mean, my confidence is still high with him. Guys are always going to struggle a little bit. He was out a few games, blah, blah, blah. It's a long season, but at the end of the day, he's what you got, and he's shown you that he can step up and hit shots because I'm sorry, but I trust him more than probably anybody on the team taking the last shot. I trust him more than Giannis, and as much as I like Holiday, I trust Middleton more because he can hit something from we've seen him hit shots from everywhere.
Yeah.
That's Holiday thing, but Middleton just knows how to get that space. So he's the guy to me. He's you need a bucket, give it to Middleton.
Yeah, and going back to you said, he's not going to do it. He's not going to be giving you great games every night. There's a reason he's a number 2 and not some superstar. There's a reason he's a borderline all-star and not a perennial superstar top 10 player. It's because that's not what he gives you every night. You're not expecting him to put up 25 a night because that's not who he is. But he very consistently, again, the consistency's dropped off a little bit lately, but throughout the last 2 years, he has consistently given you about 20 a night on efficient shooting. It's just there's games that frustrate you, but that's going to happen. There's a reason he's not a superstar. There's a reason we say Chris Middleton is good. There's a reason we say Chris Middleton is good and not Chris Middleton is elite, because he's not elite. He's a good player. He's a good second guy, third guy. I don't care, whatever you want to say. But it's like you said, people just get on him right away. I've always been a Chris Middleton believer, and I still am. With that being said, I am of the mindset that if you go to the playoffs, Chris Middleton struggles mightily in a series, and we lose that series, and you're saying, wow, this was very largely Chris's fault. I am okay at that point, believe it or not. I'm okay at that point if you wanted to trade him to try to get some other star along with these two guys. I don't know how it would work with money wise, but I would be okay at that point. I'm basically I'm saying I love Chris and I do think he can be the guy, but if I'm proven wrong this year, at some point I think you gotta do something different and just change it up. And I don't think they will, but I would be okay with that, because I'm saying, you know what, at a certain point you got to make the most of these years with Giannis. You can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And so if Chris really struggles and we lose because of that, I'm okay trading him. I don't know how you would feel.
I think part of it, I don't know. I think part of it almost ends up falling more on the coaching. Where do you draw the line with Budenholzer after all these years? Especially because obviously they say we're not going for the 1 seed. Well, that's just because they've gotten 1 seed and then they didn't do anything with it in the playoffs, really. They blew the series against Toronto. They played like crap to end the regular season before the bubble, and then, really didn't play good in the bubble. I think we were 500. And, and I know what you're saying. If Middleton really doesn't show up, that's another topic. But if guys go out there and you just get beat, I don't think you can really blame the players. And and that's another reason why I almost think Chris is arguably the most important player, because Giannis can go out there, get 25 or 30, and absolutely it's going to help you. But, if Middleton can turn it up, you're a whole new team. So in my opinion, obviously Giannis is the MVP, and he's, drastically important. But when Middleton goes out there and gets his, if he's having a rough game and you can't win games, that just shows. But
yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is like you said, if Middleton can go off, that changes your team completely. If we get to a point where we're he just can't do that enough, I'm okay saying, you know what, we're just gonna go for someone else try to get someone who has a little better potential to go off and have amazing stretches along with Giannis to really change our team. That's what I'm saying. And so if you're just it all depends. It all depends on what happens in the playoffs. And I've said for a long time, I hate the people that they'll sit there and say, oh, Chris has a great regular season, and then they say, oh, it doesn't matter, it's all about the playoffs. But then as soon as he has a bad regular season game, oh, well, he's not good enough now. I'm no, if it's all about the playoffs, it's all about the playoffs. So if he shows up in the playoffs, or if you say the regular season doesn't matter, I don't want you can sit there and not say anything about his good games, but I don't want you saying anything about his bad games then either. That's not how it works. You can't have it both ways.
Exactly.
And so if it's all about the playoffs, it's all about the playoffs. I do think it's mostly playoffs. And again, I'm willing to trade him even if he has he's had another good regular season. If he doesn't, and he hasn't been bad in the playoffs, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying at a certain point, there might be a time where I'm we have to try someone else at this, because I don't want to sit there and in 7-8 years we haven't won a title, and I'm saying, man, if we had just maybe tried someone else with the number 2, we could have maybe won a championship. But it would take him drastically playing bad. If he just plays average or plays decent, I'm not get rid of Chris Middleton. I'm fine keeping him and running it back. And if they lose because of coaching, then I think that's kind of my list. You're not getting rid of Giannis, obviously, and you're not getting rid of Drew. So if we struggle my first thing would be get rid of Bud. If we lose before the finals, depending on it's so tough, dude. It depends on how it happens. Mm-hmm. If you, like you said, if you just lose to the Nets in a hard fought series, it's tough to say, you know what, Budenholzer's gone, because you're maybe they just were more talented. That's just how it is sometimes. But I feel at some point you have to then make that move. If you can't get to the finals, it's now been 3 years and you can't get to the finals, I might just be we got to get a new coach. And so my first thing would be get rid of Bud. Next on the list would be Middleton, but he'd have to play really bad for me to want to get rid of him. and then after that, it's all just other guys. But I'm not getting rid of Giannis or Drew. But it's tough. It all depends on how it happens in the playoffs.
Yeah, with what you said about the Nets, like on this comment, saying with the NBA landscape, tough to win one superstar. People also forget Milwaukee's not the most desirable place. It's not a very.
This is a really good big three to have in Milwaukee. Ridiculously good. And
people don't understand you're competing with Anthony Davis, LeBron, two arguably top 5 players in the league right now, and Milwaukee's not going to get these James Harden, Kyrie, and KD want to team up in Milwaukee. That doesn't happen. Yeah. Like it never has and it never will, and that's not going to change. So the fact that these guys is,
Yeah, and you can sit there and say, like, oh, you need 2 superstars. We could also say, like, you can sit there and look at the second guy, but I also want to say, look at the third guy. Our third guy is better than almost any team's third guy besides like the Nets. Absolutely. And the Nets is just that's an outlier. You're not going to get, again, Kyrie, KD, and Harden very often, but our third guy is just as good as anyone else's third guy. And so you can't just look at the top 2. The third guy matters. And that's why that's why last year I was like, okay, like, yes, we didn't have that second superstar, but if you had a better third guy, it kind of makes up for that gap. And then you become another, you still are a championship team. And that's why I'm just way more confident going into the playoffs, because you have the third guy now. And so that if you don't have a second superstar, you're going to need a really good third guy. And we have that now. So I'm much more confident. And with the Chris Middleton stuff, there's way too many people on the extreme ends to me. You got the people that like love him. Oh, like he's great and can do no wrong. He's untouchable. You got the people, which isn't that much anymore. But then you got so many people that are just like, this guy can never be the guy. No matter what you say, he's not going to be the guy. We're going to lose. And I'm like, just be more in the middle sometimes. Be rational about it. Like, say, you know what? This guy is really good. He's not a superstar. He's a really good second or third guy, a good complementary piece. And he's been really good in the regular season. He's been fine in the playoffs. He hasn't been terrible. He hasn't been great. He's been fine in the playoffs. At a certain point, we might have to move on from him if he really can't get it done as the second guy. But, like, he's playing really well. It's not like this dude sucks. It's not like this dude is playing horrible. Again, even in his bad stretches, he's averaging 20 on 40% from the 3. Like, if that's your bad stretch, that's a pretty damn good bad stretch. So people just need to, like, step back and be like, you know what? Chris Middleton is not bad at all. Chris Middleton is a really good player. And at a certain point, like, he's not untouchable, but you're also not trying to get rid of him. I'm not sitting there every single game going, oh, my God, Chris Middleton's going to lose us a playoff series. Like, just be more rational about it. Stop jumping to the extreme ends. Stop jumping to we need to get rid of him every time he plays a bad game. And just acknowledge that he's good. He's going to need to step up a little bit in the playoffs. He's not untouchable. There's a scenario where we could trade him, and I'd be okay with it. But it's like you're going forward with him, and he's going to be good. It's just a matter of can he get you over the hump, and hopefully he can.
Yeah.
But
this will be a very tough playoff with, obviously Brooklyn's Brooklyn. We clearly have the better overall depth.
Yeah.
But it comes up to those matchups again, and like you said, it's kind of like the coaching thing. Like, yeah, they might be more talented than us. As you mentioned, like if they beat us, maybe they're just more talented. But there's also the other aspect that's like, other than their top 3, I'm not really scared of other guys. And you have a better top 3 than Philadelphia, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, again, they have a good top 3. I think ours is slightly better though.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, Embiid's right up there with Giannis.
But Giannis is slightly better. I think Chris is slightly better than Tobias. I think Drew is slightly better than Simmons.
So to me, and I was going to ask you this quick, unless you want to talk about this later. Who do you think is the bigger threat to the Bucks overall in the playoffs?
I'd still say the Nets. I am like both teams do scare me, and I think we could lose to either one of them. But if I had to pick one, I'd just say the Nets. The one thing is, are the Nets ever going to get completely healthy? Like, there might be a scenario where we just are like, wow, the Nets never actually get to play together, and they always just have one guy missing. If that's the case, it really like levels the playing field a lot. I think we can still beat them, even if they're at full strength. I think we can beat the Nets. If our top 3 plays well, we can beat anyone. Like, it would take a really good effort, but I do think we can realistically have a shot against a healthy Nets team. But I still like the Sixers just don't scare me as much as guys with 3 like elite superstars. So I'd still say the Nets.
I agree, and I think we can guard the Nets well. I mean, we still Giannis on Durant.
With the PJ lineup, which we're going to talk about in a sec, playoff rotations and stuff. But like you got Drew, Dante, Chris, PJ, Giannis. You just switch everything. You switch everything.
Yeah, and they're not going to have they're not going to be running DeAndre Jordan out there probably. Blake Griffin doesn't scare me a bit.
And who's their Giannis stopper? They don't really have one.
No, they do not at all. So that's who you play through. So it's like Brooklyn scares me the most because of their offense. But I also think there's so many flaws and their depth is just so bad because they went all in on the top three. That I definitely think it's so winnable, but it's still, like we said before, I want that 1 seed because I don't want to have to go through both. I only want to have to go through one.
All right, and then to wrap this thing up, let's talk about playoff rotations a little bit. Guys, who do you want to play maybe less than they're playing right now, more than they're playing right now, etc. Obviously, we're hoping Giannis, Chris, Drew, you play 35-plus minutes. You're playing them a ton. And it looks like Bud's more willing to play those guys a lot of minutes compared to last year where, you get in the playoffs and Giannis is playing like 32 minutes in a loss. And I'm like, how can you possibly do that in like a must-win game? But it looks like they're going to play those guys more. Do you think, the Pat Connaughton thing, do you think Pat should play less? I know you're a big Pat Connaughton guy, and he's played fine to me. Like, people hate on him so much, and I'm like, I get it. He should be getting less minutes. He shouldn't be playing 25 minutes, but I don't have – Pat Connaughton has played fine. And I still think, sorry, there's people in the background, but I do think he should still be a part of the playoff rotation.
I absolutely think he should be part of the playoff rotation. I think he's a perfect right around 20-minute guy, and I think the same with Tucker.
So 20 is too much to me. I don't think 20. I give me like 12 to 15 back on 10 minutes.
I think I'm trying to just think of the scenarios.
And I know you're high on him, and when he's hitting his shots, it's great. But if he's not hitting his shots, it's.
Who would you rather have in there? Who would you rather have in there?
Well, I think you play PJ more, especially against the Nets, dude. PJ against the Nets, you might even. I don't know if they're at all going to do this. I would even start PJ because you're going to need to run that 5-man lineup I talked about: Drew, Dante, Chris, PJ, Giannis, a ton against the Nets. That's how you beat that team: is you switch everything. You don't allow any. There's no mismatch on the court, and if they have Kyrie, James Harden, Kevin Durant, you can't afford to get into a mismatch with any one of those guys because they'll just destroy you. And so you need to run that lineup a ton. So I think PJ could play more. I think PJ in that series should play more than Brook. Now against Philly, you play Brook more as kind of your Embiid stopper guy. Giannis can stop Embiid a little bit, but I don't know if he can do it full time as a center. I don't think you want to play Giannis at center full time. You can during late in games, but I think you play Lopez more against the Sixers. I think you play PJ more against the Nets, and overall Pat play a little bit less, like I said, and give more minutes to Bobby Portis. I think because right now Pat's being treated kind of like the 6-man, whereas I think that should be Bobby Portis. I think you give more minutes to Portis.
Yeah, I think it's tough with some of these guys because now you're running Tucker essentially at the 4 or the 5. You already have Giannis and Brook, and you got Bobby. And then, Pat's sharing minutes with Forbes that they don't play more than really 15, 20 minutes a game already right now, which, if Pat's playing 15 to 20 in the playoffs, to me, that's perfect. 20 is around, and I know you said you think less, but I think 15 to 20, I think 15 or 20 to Forbes, and then Dante's getting 20 to 25, and then you got Holiday still, obviously Middleton, Giannis, and then you got Portis and Tucker off the bench, and that's really all the minutes you're going to get there. But there's certain situations where I think the other thing is people hate on Pat's defense way too much, which I personally do not understand. Especially
it's not terrible. It's not anything that I'm watching. I'm like, oh my god, this dude is horrible on defense. It's not good, but it's Pat Connaughton is not bad. He's not really that good. But he just gets a lot of hate for and again, it's mostly because Bud plays him too much. But he's not out there just killing you. I don't know.
No, he's got putting on an island against some of the best players in the league. Number one, that's not his fault. Number two, there's been plenty of times where he played it as good as he could play it. I watched him play Anthony Davis straight up, and Anthony Davis hits a turnaround fade in his face. If Pat Connaughton can force him to hit a turnaround fadeaway, I'm going to live with that personally. Yeah. Once he starts bullying him, backing him down, that's another story. But he doesn't really allow that because he's built pretty good. He grabs a rebound. He's super athletic. He can get into the paint and dish. he does the little things that people just don't appreciate. But I understand at the end of the day, there's other guys that are going to get more minutes, that you need to get more minutes. But all those guys that have been playing, you need because they all, have their role on this team.
Yeah, but I just agree with you a little bit with just his overall minutes. I'm playing him closer to like 12 minutes a game, giving Bobby more minutes, I think Dante should play less than he usually does. Like I'm not comfortable playing Dante like 30 minutes in the playoffs because he's just so on and off. As I mentioned, Brook and PJ are going to fluctuate based on what team you're playing. And then like Forbes and Teague, like Forbes, I love Forbes, but I don't know how much you can play him in the playoffs because you're going to need to narrow down this. You're going to need to narrow down this rotation in the playoffs. That's what you do. Giannis, Chris, Drew, Dante, Brook, PJ, Bobby. That's 7 right there. Pat probably is going to be pretty decent, but that's already 8 guys, and it's just hard to manage a rotation of like 10 guys in the playoffs. I do think Teague and Forbes play a role. I don't know how much it'll be, but they're just like guys to throw in there for a little bit. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I think Teague and Forbes won't play. I don't think Forbes will play as much as you think he will. Personally, I don't know. That's how I'm feeling because it's a tough guy to play in the playoffs because if he's not hitting his shots, what's he really providing?
I mean, for me, it's not to play him after. I'm just trying to see what he's shooting from 3. I mean,
he's 45%. Like again, that's the thing is I'm playing him. I kind of throw him out there, and if he's hits a couple threes, keep him out there. If he's not, get him out.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that's what you do for the most part, And I mean, you look at the games where he is getting minutes. It's probably because he was hitting his threes. Like Suns, he was 1 for 3, played him 14 minutes. His second most minutes this month came against Charlotte. He was 2 for 5 or 4 for 8. Sorry. So I mean, that's pretty much how Bud uses him. Is like, he averages 20 minutes a game roughly.
Yeah, so, which I'm playing him. I'm like more close to like 10 in the playoffs because again, just put him out there for a little bit, see what he's got, and if he's off, just take him out. That's kind of how you have to. But and again, it depends too on the situation of the game. If you need a spark and you need quick points, throw him out there. Maybe he can just hit some threes because he can get hot. But and yeah, Teague is mainly that just like backup point guard when Drew's not in there, and because they're still probably gonna have Dante playing quite a bit and Pat and stuff. So like Drew just or Jeff Teague's more just like that backup guy that you can have out there and he can give you some decent minutes. That's kind of what he's for, just serviceable.
Yeah.
So someone said Keaton needs more playing time. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Not really. I can't trust him in the playoffs. I think he does need more playing time in the regular season. You see what you're getting from him, but in the playoffs, it's hard for me to trust him. Same with Thanasis. It's like, where do you fit them in? Because you already have a comfortable 8 to 10 guys. I don't know how you can fit those guys in.
I want to see him get minutes, and you can say he should get minutes, but like you said, there's no spot for him. You already got Giannis there, you got Portis there, you got Tucker there now. Like there's no spot to play him.
Yeah, but the main thing, like I said, I keep going back. Main thing with the playoff rotations that I keep coming back to is the PJ Brook to kind of thing where if you're playing the Nets, you have to play PJ a lot. That's kind of what you got him for, is to beat the Nets, to switch everything. Because if you have Brook out there, they are going to abuse him. Like they will with their shooting, with their athleticism. They're going to either get switched onto him or they're going to set screens, run Lopez is just too slow to come out on guys, and it's going to kill them. And I'm just like, you've got to just kind of flip them. However, like you're usually going to play Brook more, and PJ's kind of like in there for just a certain amount of minutes. Flip it. PJ plays like most of the time. Kind of treat him as a starter. Brook just plays a few minutes when maybe when those guys are on the bench. When Kyrie, Harden, KD, or some of those guys are on the bench, you can put Brook out there for a little bit to protect the rim. But flip them against the Sixers and the Nets because I think they just kind of play. It depends on the matchups for them.
Yeah, it's all about matchups, especially in the playoffs and situational. Yeah. Like you said, there might be a game they say, Jeff Teague, you're coming in, you're playing 20 minutes tonight. Next game, you might not play. Like that's the way it's going to be. Like you said, you put Forbes in. the one thing I don't like is I don't think you can just be like, all right, he's off, we got to take him out, because you also need him to still have some confidence in there. However, I know what you're saying. If he's hitting the shots, ride him out. But it's so situational in the playoffs, especially because if you need guys to hit threes, Connaughton's going to get more minutes. Forbes is going to get more minutes until they prove you that they're not hitting their shots, and that's just the way it's going to be. But minutes wise, you can't rely on them to play 25 minutes a game, which obviously Forbes isn't. But so we'll see.
Yeah. And the reality is, I mean, the championship, like winning a championship, really will mainly come down to you play Giannis, Chris Drew a lot. How do they will they get it done? Will they play at an elite level? Because if they do, I think you can win a championship. If they don't, you won't. That's kind of the reality of it. Like if those three guys struggle a little bit or two of the three struggle a little bit, you're not going to win. But if they all play at their best, they can. And we talk about all this bench stuff. We talk about this. It helps. It might make a difference in a game or two. But the reality is it's going to come down to those top three guys. And as long as they're playing 35 plus minutes like they should have been last year, I'll live with it, Like that's you play your best guys and you see what happens. Last year was frustrating because you're like, they're not even playing Giannis 35 minutes and we lost. Like, what are you doing? At least hopefully that gets fixed. And then you ride it out with these three. And then, depending what happens, see what you got to do in the offseason, maybe make a coaching change. If something crazy happens, you switch Middleton or something. But the reality is we're likely to be moving forward with this big three. And I like that. Like as of right now, I'm very happy with that. Giannis, Chris Drew, I think that can be the three. But if the coaching is right, if everything around them is right, that's what's going to get them to the championship or winning a championship is that, coaching in the playoffs and stuff like that. So I think that's it for us. We had 42 minutes. So not bad. We didn't rant too long. So Cubs just won 2. So that's, hey.
Yeah. Brewers are 5-0. So
who are they playing?
Padres.
Oh, that's actually Padres are good, right?
I think they're 10-8 right now. I mean, they got a really good team, but
I don't know baseball as much as I know NFL and NBA. So forgive me for not knowing that if the Padres are that good. But
hey, go Brew Crew, baby! Got to be a lot of Brewer fans in here.
Oh yeah. Whatever. Every time I tweet about the Cubs, people are on me about it. Every time I talk about the Cubs, everyone's, the Brewers are better. The Brewers always beat the Cubs. I'm tired of hearing about it. It's NBA season. It's not baseball season, but we're coming to the home stretch. We got about 15-ish games left, like a month left before the playoffs start. So we'll have some more podcasts coming. You want to do an NFL draft podcast?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I'm getting excited for the draft.
I know. We'll talk more NFL stuff, draft stuff closer to that. That's on the 29th. We'll probably have some mock draft stuff to do for that. But that does it for us. Thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you next time. Go Bucks.